Hey guys, Marcus Melnick here with Firearm Mentor. Hope you're enjoying my YouTube channel. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. These little things are free to you and really help the channel. I appreciate your support. Enjoy. Thank you.
The views expressed are not those of local community broadcasting, WYML LP, or its management, volunteers, or underwriters. Greetings and welcome back to the Personal Safety Show. This is Marcus Melnick from Firearm Mentor and Stress 2 Logic, your host. And we are continuing the conversation with Andy Williams, who is running for Attorney General in Illinois. A number of years ago, and I talk about this in my concealed carry class, Gary Martin did a mass shooting at a plant in Aurora, and I understand you knew him.
Yeah, he was the one who took my little girlfriend when I was talking about I was going to Chuck E. Cheese. He the one. He was light-skinned, she was light-skinned, and then they started messing around. But yeah, I know him from Waldo. I went to middle school and high school and church.
Didn't you also delivered a eulogy at his funeral?
Yeah, most of the churches I would talk to wouldn't even let the funeral happen at there. But one church said, yeah, give us 300 or 5, whatever. They did it. And I'm a licensed minister, ordained deacon, but even if I wasn't, if God called me, I still would have did it. So I delivered the eulogy. And Billy Graham's people was there. And there was a news reporter there, too. And she couldn't even cover the story because she said it would have looked like it was a celebration. Man, the people was getting prayed for, set free. Man, just the spirit of love of a living, loving God was in that room.
Right.
And you would have not. She couldn't even cover the story because it was so different from all the rest of the funerals. And it would have seemed like you're celebrating a murderer, and it wasn't. It wasn't. With Gary's story, he was fed up. That's what it was. Even the father of one of the individuals that said, I don't agree with what Gary has done, but I know him, and you need to look at the union and the government. Like when I got my surgery, Gary was here at my house with me, and I got all these newspaper articles, so I'm not making the stuff up. I know what had happened. I got the employee file of Gary, you know?
Fair enough. I mean, people are people. Whether they do acts that are wrongs or rights, they're still individuals and they still have other parts of their lives, and I totally get that. And I'm going to switch back to our other trope. Thank you for commenting on that. What was prison like, or jail? Jail, let me just explain to the listeners, is typically holds people for less than 1 year, and prison is for 1 year or greater. So jail would hold people who are pending trial or who have a sentence that is less than 1 year. So can you tell everyone what that type of environment is like? Because all we know is what we see on TV, which I'm sure is not accurate.
Each one is different. For me, this was back in the 90s. So a lot of people I knew was there. So it was, for better terms, and that time for me, like a college gathering or something. I mean, I wasn't in no maximum security prison or nothing. It just wasn't, again, I only did 4 months in the Department of Corrections. Most of my time was spent in the county jail, 9 months one time, 11 months another time. I did spend 6 months in the mental health center because I pissed off the judge and they didn't have no way to get me. So they was like, you're unfit to stand trial, which if you ever talk to me about the law and stuff, I'm definitely not unfit. Cool. But I know people across the states, and each state has a different way of jail facility. So there's people getting, there's a new term they call unalived, which is getting killed or shanked. Right. There's some prisons, there are some of the Hollywood stories that we hear or see. Some of those do happen. You know, it's not the norm, but they do happen.
Okay. Well, you know, in the media, when I say media, I mean movies and TV, it's sensationalized. So they're going to show you the stuff that's exciting. And I've toured jails and prisons. I've never been a resident there, but I imagine it's pretty boring.
No.
It's not boring?
You wind up getting used to it. It becomes the way of life. I mean, some people I know been in there 40 years. This guy calls me every week, 2-3 times a week. He's been there 40 years. He should never been there 40 years. In Illinois, the Constitution, Article 1, Section 11, talks about the right to rehabilitation. I'm saying if somebody's locked up longer than 15 to 20 years, I don't think you need to be in prison. I think you need to be in a mental health center.
Yeah,
that's what I
because
think.
There's something going on, right?
I want my listeners to know that this is my dream, teaching people about safety. If it weren't for you, if it weren't for my listeners, I couldn't live my dream. So on behalf of my family and myself, I want to thank each and every one of you for allowing me to live my dream. And I also want to continue to live my dream, and I'm excited to continue to spread the word of safety. Recently, I began a new service as a conference keynote speaker. So if anyone would like for me to speak at future events, or if anyone knows of an introduction or would like to discuss how we can work with one another, I'd love to do just that. The keynote speaking website is www.stress2logic.com. That is STRES2logic.com. If you're aware of any conference speaking engagements where you'd like to have me speak, I'd love an introduction. You can always share my electronic business card, which is Marcus Melnick, MarcusMelnick.com. Now, back to the show.
So you're running for Illinois Attorney General. And do you have a political party?
The Republicans.
Okay. My follow-up to that is, the politically correct term is justice-involved individual. Now that we have a president who has felony convictions, has that changed the political landscape?
I don't know. It depends on what side you're looking at it. For me, what it changes for Andy, the thing that what has helped me with is by Donald Trump being labeled a felon, because he's not a felon. He's a man.
Yeah,
and on his birth certificate,
good call, man. Good call.
On his birth certificate, which I've seen it, I have a copy of it. It does not say Donald Trump felon. It says Donald J. Trump. That's important because the Constitution says we the people, not we the felons. We're the people. So what has happened is when you label somebody a felon, they're getting charged for the status of the label.
Right.
Felon, not the act that they did. For example, I have a ministry, AWJ Ministries, and if you're a member of our ministry, we will help you with your legal case because we're really doing discipleship with you. So whatever case you have, I'm going to help you with it. Does not mean you're going to get out of jail because Hebrews 13:3, the Lord disciplines those who he loves. You see a lot of people in the Bible was locked up. Some bogus, some good. So, I'm not going to get into the middle of that. But I have a brother that's in Iowa. 11 o'clock, police come to his place where he was at his business, allegedly doing a wellness check, which that was unconstitutional. But they peeked through the window, which is a violation of the Fourth Amendment. He got a gun in his hand. He gets locked up for possession of a firearm by a felon. So the only thing he was doing was holding a gun at 11 o'clock at night because he heard some people outside his business. So he takes it to trial, gets found guilty. The only act that he ever did was be labeled a felon. He didn't hurt nobody. He didn't shoot nobody. There was nothing that said he was violent. He was kidnapped. None of that. So how do you convict me on a status? I mean, it's a violation of the federal Constitution as well as the Illinois Constitution. And I have a lawsuit right now in Illinois, Northern District, suing the feds and Illinois for infringing upon people labeled as a felon the right to bear arms for self-defense. Now, just so we're clear, a violent person is still entitled to due process. And if the prisons are actual correctional facilities, you should never let a violent person out of jail because then the state has created the danger. They're entitled to due process. You can't tell me because I was locked up for a strong arm robbery back in 1991, I don't have the right to self-defense. I do, and you're infringing and depriving me of that right, which goes back to what I say about Donald Trump, who has issued an executive order, which he didn't need to. We just got to enforce the Second Amendment in the United States in the Article 1, Section 22 of the Illinois Constitution that says that people have the right to bear arms.
You actually covered one of my next questions, which was people who have the label of felon being able to have a gun. But one of the things I want to draw a parallel to is I've been in management a long time, and when there's an employee who needs redirection, we focus on the behavior, not the person. And it's very interesting to hear you say the opposite, that society focuses on the label instead of the person. And I completely agree with you. You got to look at each person as an individual and what their background is. So I'm thrilled you brought that up. Thank you. Thank you for doing that. Let's talk about voting. Can people who are in prison or jail vote?
So Maine, Vermont, Puerto Rico, Washington, D.C., you could be in actual prison and vote. Actual prison, you can vote. Illinois, and there's other states, but let's focus on Illinois. If you're in the county jail, you can vote.
Okay.
But if you're in prison, you cannot vote.
Someone gets out, can they vote?
Yeah, as soon as you get out of prison in Illinois, you walk out, you can vote. And there's some legislation being introduced right now saying 14 days after you are convicted, you have the right to vote in Illinois. The thing for me is when you have a right, that's a right. There's no exceptions to that right except in certain circumstances. Like you have the right to bear arms, but not in a public school or something like that. But I'm going to say this. I originally thought everybody should have the right to vote even if you're incarcerated. And then as I got to thinking a little more, I said, I don't know so much about that. And here's why. Because what if we kept allowing people the right to vote? We allowed people that was in jail the right to vote. And then they built a movement up and became organized. And then they voted themselves out of prison. So now it's kind of like, hold on, Andy. I think we got to rethink this. And I actually don't know the right way to handle this. Because I think, and again, this is where I have to surround myself with other people, wise counsel. Like, what is the right way to do this? If society was set up based on nature's God, Declaration of Independence, the biblical standards, any spiritual, things that do unto others, you would have others do unto you, I don't think it would be a problem. Because we wouldn't have all these people in prison the way they are today for these offenses that there's no victims involved, like my friend, possession of a firearm in his home. So then if the things were set up like that way, I don't think I'd have a problem because our institutions wouldn't have over 2 million people there. Because when you're sitting in jail, you have the time to think about so much and organize. There's people that come out and do great. Tyrone Muhammad is an example. Great movement he's got with his ECCS. There's other people that come out and they ain't studied to do all this stuff wrong, which again, the root of that is the prisons are not correctional facilities.
What's the prison labor exception to the 13th Amendment, and why is that a problem?
So the 13th Amendment was passed to abolish slavery. Section 2 of the 13th Amendment abolished all badges and incident of slavery. So anything that appeared to resemble slavery, which is parallel to it, which I alluded to earlier, the slave patrols when you're stopping people. All that was abolished through the 13th Amendment. The exception clause was if you're duly convicted of a crime. I sued 31 states based on that exception clause in 2021, saying it infringes upon, religious freedom, freedom of association. When I was done with the lawsuit, went to the appellate court, I learned something. The exception clause for being duly convicted of a crime, we have to look at what a crime was back then.
Right.
Not now. Because what happened is back then, murder, larceny, things like that were considered crimes. And what you were responsible to do is make the other person whole. Right. So when I feel like you could be, a slave, I understand what we think of the word slave as today, but my understanding, and I have not verified this one way or another, other than I heard it from a brother in Texas, is that I owe your family. I have to make you whole because I burnt up your building. So I have to work to make you whole. That's what I feel like it should be if that's not what it meant. Because when you look at all the things that happened after the 13th Amendment was passed, which is called black codes, which were certain codes that the public would put you in prison so then they can convict lease you back out to the plantations, that was found to be unconstitutional. Jim Crow era, that was found to be unconstitutional. Today, possession of drugs, possession of a firearm, I'd even go to say prostitution. Those are all unconstitutional because there's nobody that's injured.
Right.
There's no victim.
Victimless crime.
But if you are a prostitute or a pimp and you do something and you hurt somebody, give them a disease, STD, there you go. Now we talking. If you have drugs and you giving somebody fentanyl and killing them and they're not getting what they're supposed to be getting, that's a problem.
Right.
But if we as a society actually got to the root and used the drugs for what the natural resource is, what it was intended to be by nature's God, we won't have this problem. So at some point, I feel like we got to find a way to align back in with nature the way it's supposed to be, and we won't be so out of whack.
There you go again, Andy, making sense. Okay, I'm sarcastic, sorry. And you actually addressed one of my future questions to you, and I want to point it out and kind of reframe it a little bit just for the listeners. I was going to ask Andy, what does he consider justice? And he just explained it. It's making the other party whole, which is a beautiful, beautiful thing. I want to kind of continue on the servitude trope. How are taxes, and I believe I got this from your website, involuntary servitude, and I believe we're talking about income tax, not sales tax.
Think about the stamp, for those that know the history, the Stamp Tax Act, when the British were taxing the people and they said taxation without representation, this whole war, it's because you were taxing the people without representing them and they had no voice. Zero, zone. They overthrew this situation with Great Britain, the king. And then we get over here to the States. From the 13 colonies and now, we've said whenever we want to do something, let's just tax the people. If we the people created government, so understand, we the people created the Constitution. How did the created overtake the creators? We created government.
Right.
So did we create something to say, I'm going to take 30% out of your check when you work for me? That's not what the 16th Amendment said. But when you have these incompetent, meaning people who are judges elected that have never been taught the truth, they keep ruling against us people, saying, no, you got to pay this, you got to pay this. And I'm saying, no, we do not. A man or woman is worthy of their labor. We don't owe the government anything. That's why when you look through the biblical times, it was all this slavery because people were making people do stuff.
Right.
Same way today, it parallels it. I'm making you work for the government. I'm taking it out of your check. If you don't pay this, I'm going to take your stuff. If that ain't slavery, what is it? We don't have to fund the government. That's not our job. Our job is to take care of our family, our communities, and all this. So do I believe the tax is necessary? Right, the business tax, the corporate tax. You want to engage in commerce with all that? Maybe there's a tax on that. Or maybe, just maybe, the government is too big. It wasn't intended to have all these administrative agencies all out here. We didn't need you trying to control our families and all this. So that's what I mean by it. It's slavery. Involuntary servitude violates Section 2 of the 13th Amendment. Walker versus Congress, a guy sued about that already, and they said it's a political question. They wouldn't even do their job.
Trust. We are trusted and established in teaching others to protect themselves from physical harm. What if we could also protect your wallet? At Firearm Mentor and Stress to Logic programs, safety isn't only about strength. It's about smart choices and peace of mind. With decades of public safety experience from law enforcement and firefighting to stress resilience coaching, Marcus equips you to stay calm, confident, and in control, no matter the pressure. And now, with our new partnership with Think Energy Plus, we're giving you a chance to protect what matters most, your budget, by switching to cleaner, fixed-rate electric energy and soon-to-be gas. With personalized savings, you're investing in both your safety and your savings. And with AutoSave, you are automatically switched to the lowest energy rate. Whether you are guarding your personal safety or safeguarding your finances,
Marcus Melnick and Think Energy Plus are your trusted allies. Discover how to stay safe and save by visiting thinkenergy.plus/Marcus Melnick. That's thinkenergy.plus/Marcus Melnick. After you visit, send your electric bill for a free rate analysis to marcus@firearmmentor.com. Smart protection for your body and your wallet.
So what's your opinion on the drug war and gang legislation?
So the drug war is unconstitutional. And I'm going to give this piece of history so we'll understand why I think the way I think. The 18th Amendment was passed to prohibit the sale and manufacture of alcohol. When the 18th Amendment was passed, it was enforced through the Volstead Act. And if people know, in order for a constitutional amendment to happen, a certain number of the states have to ratify that. So the people vote about it, and then they pass this, and then you have a constitutional amendment. That 18th Amendment prohibiting the sale and manufacture of alcohol was repealed with the 21st Amendment. So the people came back and said, nah, we ain't doing this. And then prohibition was over. Well, there's never been a constitutional amendment to prohibit the sale and manufacture of drugs. Never. There's only been the Controlled Substance Act. It started out at the Hobbs Act, the Marijuana Tax Act, all these taxes that was going on, but there's never been a constitutional amendment. However, if you have a license, you can sell drugs. And that's the problem right there. So drugs is bad unless you got a license. I have two younger brothers. Both of them have passed away, but the oldest out of the two, he died on an opioid overdose. Mm-hmm. So it's personal. It's got to be like 48 states. They sued the pharmaceutical companies for the opioid epidemic, and they got fined civilly. But the same, because opioids is heroin, which is a Schedule Class 2 drug.
Right.
That same Schedule Class 2 drug that people selling in the streets, cocaine or whatever, oh, you going to prison for that. Well, how come the pharmaceutical companies didn't go to prison? They were selling drugs. Oh, they have a license. So you give them a license to kill, but in the community, and that violates due process. But again, you got to hear me. I am not advocating for the sale of drugs in our communities. What I'm saying is, let's get to the root of why drugs are even being used in the first place, which some are being used for self-medication, and because they don't have therapists or they're ashamed or whatever the root issue is. And that can only be solved when we, the community, come together to get to the root and not just throw a Band-Aid on and say, I'm going to punish everybody. I don't think you can do that. You can't. The Constitution says you can't do that. Natural law says you can't do that.
Right.
And instead of me being mad at the individual that's selling drugs or using drugs, cut off the supply because you heal the person. I woke up one day and stopped selling drugs.
Right.
That's what I did. I just woke up one day and said, man, I am destroying my community. And it had something to do with the blueprint from Larry Hoover that was saying, hey, you destroying your community, Andy. You know, he didn't say it directly to me, but I read it. No different than what the Bible says.
Right.
I'm reading it directly to me, and I'm like, man, Andy, you're destroying this. So the simple way is I'm saying it's unconstitutional, but there's a way to get to the bottom of it. And it's not saying I'm going to let everybody go that's selling drugs or sold drugs or this.
Right.
But there's a way to begin to backtrack it, reverse the curse, as I would like to say it. And that's what we need to start doing.
We've covered a lot today. This was a really robust interview. What did I not ask you that I should have asked you?
I am the first non-attorney running for Attorney General. And Article 5, Section 3 of the Illinois Constitution does not require me to be an attorney. And that is the big elephant in the room. And I'm running as a radical Republican, which were the early Republicans, which were abolitionists, which Illinois was the first state to ratify the 13th Amendment. So when you tie those two in together, I even sued Trump during COVID. I sued him for breach of his fiduciary duty because I felt that this COVID mandate was unconstitutional. And he had the Department of Justice, which was one point Jeff Sessions, and then William Barr, which I think William Barr was Attorney General when I sued him. I am the people's advocate. With all the attorneys that we have in Illinois, I don't understand why our state is the way it is, except when I think it's Luke 11 something that says, woe unto you lawyers, you have the key, but don't use it, and then don't let nobody in through it. So that's me telling the people, you want a true advocate for the people. I'm not an advocate for the Republicans. I'm not an advocate for the Democrats. I'm not an advocate for the police. No, I'm an advocate of the people to do what is right, what is just, what is fair. That's what it is. And I'm not telling you I can do this alone. That's why you surround yourself with other wise people.
Very good.
What I am telling you is, if I stepped in the fire and I've stood up for my rights, I've stood up for infringement of the housing rights, I stood up for the police doing unconstitutional policing, and then I've advocated for the police when they do right. So I'm not picking a side other than the side of righteousness. So by me being a non-attorney, I think the people of Illinois should be like, which I get it a lot of times, oh man, we love this, bro. This is beautiful. Because I'm not doing this goofy stuff no more.
Right. Very good. Well, can you share your contact information, website, social media, how people can get a hold of you, get involved, ask questions, etc.?
My campaign website, which is andy4ag.us. So www.andyforag.us. Send an email, sign up, social media. You'll see Andy Williams Jr. or the Hood Candidate. And the Hood Candidate is a brand for our Joshua generation, but it ties into the Trayvon Martin case, and it ties into Christ, who went in the hood. He always went where the people were.
Right.
So it's got a double meaning behind it, and I have a hood with a suit on because I'm saying this is the best of both worlds. The community and the corporation with the business, and I'm tying those two together.
Absolutely brilliant. Andy, thank you for taking the time to talk to our listeners, and of course we all wish you the best of everything in your campaign. Thank you.
Thank you.
We have monthly concealed carry license CCL classes in the northwest suburbs of Chicago. Dates can be seen at firearmmentor.com/classes. If you have a question, we can be reached at www.firearmmentorcard.com. That is our electronic business card, has all of our contact information and links in it. It's the easiest way to get a hold of us. Until next time, stay safe out there, and I'll see you at the shooting range. This is Marcus Melnick from Firearm Mentor signing off. The views expressed are not those of local community broadcasting, WYML LP, or its management, volunteers, or underwriters.